The Caitlin Clark moment that everyone misread. Caitlin Clark did not explode at Stephanie White because the Indiana Fever locker room was falling apart. She exploded because the entire basketball world was watching a normal coaching conversation and turning it into a scandal. But here is the part that makes this story far more interesting. Both Clark and White later described the moment in almost the same way. They said it was competitive, emotional, and intense, but not the betrayal, mutiny, or locker room crisis that social media wanted it to be. And the real question is not whether Caitlin Clark challenged her coach. The real question is why a competitive exchange between two people who desperately want to win was treated like a sports emergency. Before we break down what actually happened, subscribe to the channel. If you enjoy fact-checked basketball stories, sharp analysis, and the moments that change the conversation around the game, this is exactly where you want to be. And stay with me, because by the end of this story, the most important detail will not be what happened on the sideline. It will be what that moment reveals about Caitlin Clark, Stephanie White, and the enormous pressure surrounding the Indiana Fever. What actually happened? The moment took place during Indiana's loss to the Portland Fire. Cameras captured Caitlin Clark and Fever head coach Stephanie White having an animated exchange on the bench. The clip quickly went viral, and almost immediately, the story around the footage became larger than the footage itself. People began presenting the interaction as proof of a broken relationship. Others described it as a power struggle between a superstar and her coach. Some suggested that Clark had finally reached her limit and was publicly challenging White's authority. But the verified account is much less dramatic and much more revealing. When Clark was asked about the exchange, she described it as two competitive people who both wanted to win. She also pushed back against the idea that outside observers understood the full situation simply because a camera had captured a few seconds of it. That distinction matters. A camera can show body language. It can show frustration. It can show raised voices, gestures, and intense eye contact. What it cannot automatically show is the relationship behind the moment, the conversation that came before it, or the trust that exists between the people involved. Clark made it clear that she supports White and her teammates. She said the people inside the locker room did not interpret the moment the way many people outside the team did. White offered a similar explanation. She said she was challenging a player, describing the moment as coaching. She also said that her relationship with Clark was strong and that Clark wanted to be coached. That statement quietly changes the entire story. This was not presented by either participant as a personal breakdown. It was presented as a demanding basketball relationship between a star player and a head coach who both have strong opinions and a strong desire to win. The scoreboard made the moment look worse. The timing of the exchange made it easier for the internet to turn the clip into a crisis. The Fever lost the game to Portland, and Clark had one of her worst offensive performances of the season. She finished with 6 points while shooting 1 of 7 from the field. The Fever also allowed Portland to score 100 points, making defensive struggles part of the conversation surrounding the game. When a team loses badly, every visible disagreement looks more serious. A coach speaking sharply to a player suddenly becomes evidence of tension. A player gesturing toward the court becomes disrespect. A disagreement during a timeout becomes a supposed locker room fracture. But basketball games are emotional environments. Coaches challenge players because the margin between winning and losing can be incredibly small. Players challenge coaches because they see the game from a different angle. The player feels the defender on her hip. The player recognizes a passing lane before it opens. The coach sees the entire floor, the substitution pattern, and the larger game plan. Those perspectives can collide without the relationship being broken. In Clark and White's case, the loss created the perfect conditions for speculation. The team was struggling, the star was frustrated, the camera was close, and the clip was short enough for everyone to fill in the blanks with their own interpretation. That is how a few seconds can become a complete storyline. But a viral clip is not the same thing as verified evidence. The available reporting confirms an animated exchange and confirms the explanations given by both Clark and White. It does not confirm a locker room rebellion, a secret coaching ultimatum, or a hidden demand for control. Those claims should be removed, not repeated. Caitlin Clark's own explanation. Clark's response was important because it showed how aware she is of the difference between what happens inside a team and what people assume from the outside. She acknowledged that the camera was on her. She understood that every gesture would be analyzed. She knew that a normal competitive moment could become a headline. But she also rejected the idea that the public automatically understood the situation better than the people involved. That is something Clark has encountered throughout her rise. Her game attracts extraordinary attention, and that attention creates a strange environment. Every shot is replayed, every reaction is clipped, every conversation can be turned into a debate about personality, leadership, respect, or control. For most players, a heated exchange may disappear into the rhythm of a long season. For Clark, it can become the defining topic of the week. That does not mean she is above criticism. It does mean the standard applied to her is different. Her words are dissected more intensely because she has become one of the most visible players in basketball. The pressure began before she entered the professional league. At Iowa, she became one of the most recognizable players in college basketball. She carried enormous expectations into the WNBA as the first overall pick. Then, in her rookie season, she delivered statistics that justified the attention. The official league record shows that Clark averaged 19.2 points, 8.4 assists, 5.7 rebounds, 1.33 steals, and 35.4 minutes per game in 2024. She led the league in assists and became the first rookie to record a triple-double in WNBA history. She also set the league's single-season assist record with 337 assists and established rookie records for points with 769 and three-pointers made with 122. So when Clark speaks with urgency on the sideline, people are not just watching a young guard. They are watching the face of a franchise, the player associated with the league's next phase, and an athlete whose every action is already connected to a much larger cultural conversation. Stephanie White's response. Stephanie White's explanation was equally important. She did not describe Clark as insubordinate. She did not say the relationship had been damaged. She did not suggest that Clark had crossed a line that could not be repaired. Instead, White said she was coaching. That may sound simple, but it is exactly the point many reactions ignored. A coach's job is not only to praise a player when things are going well. A coach must challenge decisions, demand better execution, correct mistakes, and hold star players accountable. In fact, the best players often expect that level of honesty. White also described herself and Clark as similar in certain ways. Both are competitive. Both are stubborn. Both want to improve. Those qualities can create friction, but they can also create trust. The strongest player-coach relationships are not always quiet. Sometimes they are direct. Sometimes they include disagreement. Sometimes a player wants one answer and a coach wants another. The question is not whether disagreement exists. The question is whether both sides can use that disagreement to become better. White's comments suggested that she believes Clark wants to be coached and that Clark can help White become a better coach. That is not the language of a relationship collapsing. That is the language of two demanding competitors trying to build something difficult. And building is rarely neat. The Fever are not operating in a normal media environment. Their games receive extraordinary attention. Their star player draws a national audience. Every loss becomes a larger debate about the WNBA, player development, coaching, roster construction, and the future of the league. That makes White's responsibility heavier, not lighter. She has to develop Clark without allowing outside noise to control the team. She has to give Clark room to use her creativity while still teaching her where risks become costly. She has to build trust with the star while maintaining authority with the entire roster. That is a complicated assignment. The difference between freedom and structure. A major part of the Clark conversation revolves around the idea that she should simply be given complete freedom. That sounds obvious when you watch her make a difficult pass or launch a deep three. But professional basketball is not built around isolated highlights. Even an elite creator needs spacing, screening angles, defensive discipline, rebounding responsibilities, and teammates who understand what happens when a possession breaks down. Clark's brilliance is connected to unpredictability. She sees passing windows that many players do not attempt. She can change the speed of a possession with one decision. She can stretch a defense far beyond the three-point line, but freedom does not mean every possession becomes an improvisation. A coach must determine when to push the pace, when to slow down, when to create a mismatch, and when to protect the team from unnecessary turnovers. A player may see an opportunity that is not visible from the sideline, while the coach may understand the larger pattern that the player cannot see in the middle of the action. This is where coaching becomes collaboration. Clark needs a system that uses her strengths. White needs a player who understands the responsibilities of the system. The Fever need both sides to meet in the middle. If the coach removes every creative instinct from Clark's game, the team wastes an extraordinary skill set. If Clark ignores structure entirely, the team becomes vulnerable to mistakes that accumulate over an entire season. The answer is not old basketball versus new basketball. The answer is intelligent basketball. Why the Fever receives so much attention? The Indiana Fever entered a new level of visibility with Clark's arrival, and the numbers show that the attention was not imaginary. In 2024, Indiana's average home attendance reached 17,036, according to data reported by the Washington Post. That was the highest average in WNBA history at the time. The Fever had ranked near the bottom of the league in attendance the previous season, but their average more than quadrupled after Clark arrived. The league also experienced major growth. More than 2.3 million fans attended WNBA games during the 2024 season, a record for the modern 12-team era. Indiana's game against Washington at Capital One Arena drew 20,711 fans, setting a regular season attendance record for the league at that time. Television audiences also increased dramatically. Indiana appeared in the WNBA's most-watched games during the season, and the Fever's playoff series averaged approximately 2.17 million viewers per game. The 2024 draft, where Indiana selected Clark first overall, attracted 2.45 million viewers, more than 4 times the previous year's draft audience. Those figures do not mean Clark created the WNBA. The league had stars, history, elite competition, and loyal fans long before Clark arrived. But they do show that her presence expanded the audience and intensified the spotlight. That is why a short sideline exchange can travel so quickly. It is not happening in an empty arena. It is happening inside one of the most watched basketball stories in the world. Every moment is magnified because more people are watching. The problem with the secret locker room narrative. The original story surrounding the viral clip included claims about hidden conversations, players taking sides, assistant coaches making dramatic comparisons, and a supposed division between older veterans and younger players. But those claims are not supported by the verified sources available here. There is no reliable evidence confirming that assistant coaches describe the Fever as a modern sports car being driven like an old vehicle. There is no verified evidence that Clark confronted a teammate over a wasted transition opportunity. There is no verified evidence that veterans were organizing against Clark or that young players had formed a separate group around her. Those details may sound dramatic, but dramatic does not mean authentic. A responsible rewrite must remove them. The verified story is already compelling. A famous young star had an animated exchange with her coach during a difficult game. The clip became viral. Both people involved said the exchange was competitive coaching rather than a personal conflict. The player defended her coach and teammates. The coach defended the relationship and explained that she was challenging a player. That is enough. The truth does not need invented quotes or unnamed insiders to become interesting. In fact, the real story is more powerful because it raises a deeper issue. How should the public interpret emotional leadership from a young superstar? Is passion being judged differently? Clark's comment about the media turning a moment into something it was not also connects to a broader question about sports coverage. Fans are accustomed to seeing athletes argue with coaches. In basketball, players question decisions, point toward defensive mistakes, demand the ball, and express frustration during games. These moments can be part of competition. But when the player is a highly visible woman entering a traditionally undercovered league, the reaction can become unusually personal. A confident male athlete may be described as intense, demanding, or competitive. A confident female athlete can be described as difficult, emotional, or disrespectful. That double standard is real enough to examine, but it should be discussed carefully. It does not mean every criticism of Clark is unfair. It does mean that some criticism may focus more on her tone than on the basketball question itself. Was she confused about a defensive assignment? Was she questioning a substitution? Was she asking for a different action? Was she reacting to the score? Those are basketball questions. Instead, the conversation often becomes a judgment of her personality. Clark's directness can create strong reactions because she does not always perform the role of the quiet, grateful rookie. But her resume explains why she believes she belongs in serious basketball conversations. She arrived as an established creator, and her professional statistics immediately placed her among the league's most productive players. That does not make her infallible. It does make it reasonable for her to participate in the team's basketball discussions. The rookie label does not tell the whole story. One of the most common mistakes in discussions about Clark is treating the word rookie as if it explains everything about her. Yes, she was a rookie when she entered the WNBA, but she was not an inexperienced basketball player. Before becoming a professional, Clark had already played in high-pressure college games, carried a nationally recognized program, broken the NCAA Division I scoring record, and earned consensus National Player of the Year honors in consecutive seasons. The WNBA still required an adjustment. Professional defenders are stronger, faster, and more disciplined. The schedule is demanding. Every opponent studies every weakness. A player can dominate college basketball and still need time to learn professional habits. Clark did have those adjustments to make, but rookie development does not mean the player has no voice. A young star can be coached and still have valuable observations. A player can make mistakes and still understand certain offensive patterns better than anyone else on the floor. Leadership does not arrive only after a player reaches a specific age. The responsibility of the organization is to balance patience with empowerment. Clark must continue improving her defense, decision-making, and ability to manage physical pressure. The Fever must continue building a structure that allows her strengths to influence winning basketball. Neither side benefits from pretending the other is unnecessary. What the viral moment revealed about White. The exchange also tells us something about Stephanie White's role. White is not coaching a quiet rebuilding team that can develop away from national attention. She is coaching one of the most visible teams in the sport, with a superstar whose every possession can become a highlight or a criticism. That means her choices will be analyzed constantly. If she challenges Clark, some people will accuse her of restricting the star. If she gives Clark more freedom, some people will accuse her of abandoning structure. If she rests Clark, some people will say she is mishandling the player. If she plays Clark through fatigue, the criticism will move in the opposite direction. There is no decision that exists outside the spotlight. White's strongest response is not to avoid every conflict. It is to build enough trust that conflict does not automatically become crisis. Her comments after the game were useful because she did not allow the viral moment to define the relationship. She explained the context, defended Clark, and made it clear that coaching a star does not mean opposing her. That may become one of the most important skills in Indiana. Clark does not need a coach who is afraid of her. She also does not need a coach who ignores her. She needs a coach who understands when to challenge her, when to trust her instincts, and when to demand that she make the difficult decision that produces the best result for the team. What the viral moment revealed. About Clark's response revealed a different kind of leadership. She did not use the moment to distance herself from White. She did not present herself as a player who should be exempt from coaching. She defended her coach and teammates while criticizing the outside narrative. That is a significant distinction. A player can disagree with a coach and still respect the coach. A player can want more freedom and still accept accountability. A player can believe a decision was wrong without believing the relationship is broken. Clark's response suggested that she understands those differences. Her frustration was not necessarily evidence of a desire to control everything. It may simply have been the visible expression of a player trying to solve a difficult basketball problem in real time. The public will never see every conversation in a team environment. We will not hear every film room discussion. We will not know how players communicate after practice or how coaches explain decisions behind closed doors. That is why the statements from the people actually involved matter more than speculation. Clark said the relationship was strong. White said the relationship was strong. Until credible evidence shows otherwise, that is the responsible conclusion. The bigger basketball question. The larger question is how Indiana should build around Clark's game. The answer begins with her most obvious strengths: shooting range, passing vision, ball handling, pace, and the ability to organize an offense. But building around a point guard does not mean simply handing her the ball and watching what happens. It means surrounding her with players who create space, screen effectively, finish plays, defend multiple positions, and make quick decisions when Clark draws help defense. It also means developing continuity. A team cannot become a cohesive unit if every game is treated as a referendum on the coach or the superstar. Players need to know their responsibilities. They need to understand the difference between an open shot and a forced shot. They need to recognize when Clark is attacking and when she is manipulating the defense to create an opportunity for someone else. Clark's greatness can make teammates better, but only if the entire group learns how to play with her. That process can be uncomfortable. A guard who receives fewer touches may have to adjust. A big player may need to sprint harder in transition. A wing may need to relocate instead of standing in the corner. The defense may need to protect the risk created by aggressive offensive decisions. Those changes are not signs of division. They are signs of a team learning a new identity. The myth that every disagreement is a power struggle. Sports audiences often prefer simple stories. The player is right or the coach is right. The veteran is blocking the future. The young star is disrespectful. The front office must choose one side. But winning teams rarely operate through such simple divisions. A coach can be right about defensive discipline, while a player is right about a passing window. A veteran can offer leadership while still needing to adapt. A young star can be transformational while still making mistakes. The most dangerous conclusion would be that the Fever must choose between Clark and White based on one visible exchange. That would be reacting to a clip instead of evaluating a season. A coaching relationship should be judged by player development, tactical clarity, defensive improvement, offensive efficiency, communication, and results over time. Not by whether two competitive people look frustrated for a few seconds. The Fever's challenge is not to eliminate disagreement. It is to make disagreement productive. Why the business impact raises the stakes. Clark's impact extends beyond the box score. The Washington Post reported significant growth in attendance, television viewership, merchandise sales, and online engagement connected to the Fever and the league during her rookie season. The Fever's average attendance became the highest in WNBA history, and the team appeared in a remarkable number of the league's most watched games. Nike has also positioned Clark as a signature athlete. The company announced a signature logo created with Clark and said her first signature shoe and apparel collection would debut in 2026. Caitlin Clark's intensity is not a problem that needs to be erased. Stephanie White's authority is not something that needs to be surrendered. The Fever do not have to choose between a superstar and a coach based on a few seconds of viral footage. They have to build trust, demand accountability, and create a system that gives Clark the freedom to make an impact without asking the entire team to abandon structure. The facts are clear. Clark has already produced one of the most remarkable rookie seasons in WNBA history. She set league and rookie records, helped Indiana return to the playoffs, and became a major force in the league's attendance and television growth. The facts are also clear about the viral confrontation. It happened during a difficult loss. Both people involved described it as competitive coaching, and neither presented it as a personal fracture. That does not mean every question has been answered. It means the next answers have to come from the court. Can Indiana defend consistently? Can the offense become more connected? Can Clark continue to grow while remaining aggressive? Can White create a system that maximizes her gifts? Can the entire roster turn extraordinary attention into extraordinary performance? Those are the questions worth asking, not whether a few seconds of frustration proves the team is doomed. Because sometimes the loudest moment is not the end of a relationship. Sometimes it is simply what competition looks like when everyone involved cares deeply about winning. And if the Fever can learn how to use that intensity instead of fearing it, this viral moment may eventually be remembered for a very different reason. Not as proof that Indiana was breaking apart, but as a reminder that the future of the franchise was already demanding to be heard.